So good evening, students. So let's begin another session of online classes, zoology classes. So we've been started off with the topic called as principles of inheritance and variation, right? Under that, in the previous session, we took up with something called as the uh, cytoplasmic inheritance, and we saw exactly how certain genes, which are actually a part of the cytoplasm, are being inherited from one generation to the other generation. So we also started calling it as maternal inheritance or organal inheritance, because it is the genes that is present in the cytoplasm of the mother which are being inherited into the offspring, right? So we also call it as maternal inheritance or organal inheritance. So with regards to this cytoplasmic inheritance, in the previous session we have taken up two examples. One was with regards to the branch color or plastid inheritance in case of the plant called as Mirabilis jalpa, right? And the second example what we have taken up is with the pattern of shell coiling in case of snakes, right? So with these two, I think we have got a clear picture of what exactly is this cytoplasmic inheritance all about, right? So in today's session, we'll be taking up with another topic which is called as pedigree analysis. We have something called as pedigree analysis. So what exactly is this pedigree analysis, and what are we going to take up in this particular topic called as pedigree analysis, right? So pedigree analysis is nothing but a systematic way how we actually identify the inheritance pattern of a particular gene, right? So what exactly is pedigree analysis? Through pedigree analysis, we are actually going to identify a systematic pattern of how a particular gene is being inherited from one generation to the other generation. In simple, we can actually take it as a family tree also. We can consider it as a family tree, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to plot a few generations, right? And we are going to study how exactly a particular gene is being inherited from a generation to the other generation, right? So in this pedigree analysis, the benefits of pedigree analysis is it is actually related to something called as the human genetics, right? It is related to human genetics. So the use of this pedigree analysis is, till now if we see, we spoke a lot of things about inheritance, right? Inheritance in case of plants, inheritance in case of animals. So if we had to study the inheritance pattern in case of plants and animals, what did we actually do? We started crossing two different organisms. But in case of humans, crossing the individuals to study the inheritance pattern is not possible. So therefore, what do? We go in with analysis of this family tree, what we actually call it as pedigree. So by plotting this pedigree or the family tree or the family chart, we can see how exactly a particular character is being inherited from one generation to the other generation, right? So in this pedigree analysis, we can go either backward, we can see the generations of our ancestors, that is the grandparents, great grandparents, and so on. And at the same time, we can also study about the future generations also. So we can predict what would be the character present in the future generations, right? So one of the basic importance of this pedigree analysis is with regards to study of something called as genetic disorders, right? So usually for studying certain genetic disorders, we actually go in for this particular pedigree analysis. So what does this mean, genetic disorders? Any diseases which are seen due to mutations in chromosomes or mutations in the gene, we start calling it as genetic disorders, right? So what exactly is a genetic disorder? Any disease which is seen as a result of mutation of chromosome or mutation of the genes, we start calling it as genetic disorder. So to study the genetic disorder pattern, how exactly it is being transmitted from one generation to the other generation, we go in with this pedigree analysis, because we know that genetic disorders are what? They are inherited disorders, right? So we are actually inheriting the disorder. So what does that mean, inheriting a particular disorder? If a particular disease is seen in the father, the same disease will be seen in the daughter. If a particular disease is seen in the mother, the same will be seen in the son as well. So the passage of disease from one generation to the other generation, we start calling it as inherited disorder or hereditary disorder, right? So to study those kinds of hereditary disorder, right, we go in with pedigree analysis. So let us take a particular instance here. Father is suffering from a genetic disorder. The son is also suffering from a genetic disorder. Now we want to identify whether the grandson would be suffering with that genetic disorder or not. So how do we go? We go in through this pedigree analysis. So through this tool called pedigree analysis, we will be able to predict whether the future generations will be getting that sort of a genetic disorder or not. That is the importance of pedigree analysis. So before we go in with this pedigree analysis or before we put in the pedigree chart, whenever we talk about this pedigree analysis, we actually use certain symbols. We always start the pedigree chart by using certain symbols, right? We cannot, right? So we actually cannot use the name of a particular individual also. So what do? We usually use certain symbols, right? So we use certain symbols to identify a few generations. So before we actually get into plotting the pedigree chart or start analyzing the pedigree chart, let us see what are the symbols that are most frequently used in case of this pedigree analysis, right? So let us take up with the symbols that are used in pedigree analysis, right? Okay, so the first symbols, so the symbols that are used in pedigree analysis. The first one what we use is a circle, right? So empty circle here, right? Empty circle denotes that it is a normal female. So whenever we have to denote a female, we use this particular circle, right? So the empty circle, so empty circle would start denoting a normal female. The second one, a square here. So empty square, right? So the empty square would denote a normal male, right? So a circle would be a female, right? And a square, sorry, circle would be a female, correct? Square would be a male. Sometimes what happens is, sometimes you have a symbol which would be like this, a diamond shaped symbol, right? So there would be a diamond shaped symbol. So if this symbol is present, that indicates that it is, the sex is unspecified. So sex unspecified, right? So if you find these sort of a symbol in a pedigree chart, it shows that the sex of this particular individual is said to be unspecified. So the sex is not specified. So we don't know the sex of that particular individual, whether it is a male or whether it is a female, right? So circle, female, square, male, a diamond shaped structure, sex is unspecified, right? Then we have another symbol where it goes like this. So a circle, and this circle is completely colored, or we can call it as a solid circle, right? So if the circle is solid, so that indicates that the individual is, since it is circle again, it would be a female. Now, since it is solid or it is colored, we usually refer it as affected female. So what does that mean, affected female? This particular female is actually suffering from some sort of a disorder. So we start calling it as affected female. So if it is a colored circle, a solid circle rather, we start calling it as affected female. The same with the male also. So if there is a square, right, and if it is said to be solid, right, if it is a square and if it is a solid, this would indicate the affected male, right? So a solid circle indicates affected female, solid square would indicate affected male. So these are a few symbols what we usually use. If there is a circle, empty circle, female, normal female. If there is a solid circle, affected female. Empty square, normal male. Solid square, affected male. Then if there is a diamond shaped structure, we call it as unspecified sex, or the sex is not being specified. So these are the terms what we usually use with regards to the female as well as male: normal male, normal female, affected male and affected female, right? Next one, we have, sometimes we have a circle that is only half solid, right? a circle that is half solid, or there is a square which is again half solid, right? So a circle half solid, a square half solid. So this would start indicating the heterozygous condition, right? So this would actually start indicating a heterozygous condition. Wherever you find a symbol with either a circle or a square which is half solid or half shaded, that would be with regards to a heterozygote condition. So the heterozygotes here, we would give a term, we would start calling them as carriers of a particular disease, right? So we start calling them as carriers of a particular disease. More precisely speaking, they are actually said to be carriers for, autosomal recessive disease. Carriers for autosomal recessive disease. So what does this mean, autosomal recessive disease? So if a disease has to be seen in a particular person, right, the condition of that gene should be recessive, right? So it should be either small a, it should be small t, right? So if the condition is recessive, only then the individual would be affected. That we start calling it as a recessive disorder, right? Try to understand this. We'll get more into details of all of these disorders once we are done with the pedigree chart or the pedigree analysis. For now, remember that recessive disorders are nothing but if the disease has to be expressed, right? So the genome or both the alleles should be recessive allele. Only then a particular disease would be expressed. Now, before recessive, we are using another term, autosomal recessive. So what does that mean? Recessive condition is actually seen in the autosomal genes, right? So what are autosomes? Autosomes are nothing but body chromosomes, right? The chromosomes which are not involved in the reproduction, right? Or in the process of sex determination, we start calling them as autosomes, right? So in humans, we have how many autosomes? 22 pairs are said to be autosomes and one pair is said to be allosomes, right? So if there is mutation in these 22 pairs, and that mutation is a recessive mutation, then we start calling it as autosomal recessive disorder. Now, whenever you see the symbols in a pedigree chart, either a circle or a square, which is half shaded or half solid, that would indicate that this particular individual is a carrier, right? It indicates a heterozygous condition. So it could be capital A, small a, or it could be capital T, small t. So these individuals, we start calling them as carriers. Carriers for what? Carriers for autosomal recessive disorder. This is important, what you need to remember. Right. Now, in another case, we have another kind of disorder, right, which is allosomal disorder. So talking about allosomal disorder, allosomal recessive disorder. So whenever we say about allosomal recessive disorder, we'll be talking about X-linked genes, the genes which are present on the X chromosomes, right? So remember, when we are talking about autosomal disorders, we are talking about the genes, mutation in the genes located on these 22 pairs of chromosomes. And whenever we talk about allosomal disorders, we are actually referring to the mutation of the gene present on this particular allosome, right? And more precisely speaking, the genes present in the X chromosome, right? So those we start calling it as sex-linked disorders or allosomal disorders, right? Or simply we can call it as X-linked disorders. Because why do we call it as X-linked disorders? Because we are referring to the mutation of the gene located on the X chromosome. Now, talking about allosomal recessive. So what does that mean? Allosomal recessive. We know that in humans, the condition is XX in case of females and XY in case of males. So females have two X chromosomes. So we are talking about the X-linked disorders, genes present on the X chromosome, right? So if there is a mutation happening on one X chromosome, right, that will not show any disease. If in females, a particular disease has to be expressed, then both the genes located on both the chromosomes has to be mutated. This we start calling it as allosomal recessive disorder or X-linked recessive disorder. Right. So this is how we usually represent. But when we have to talk about carriers here, carriers, only one would be the carrier. If only one gene on the X chromosome is being mutated, right? If only one gene on the X chromosome is mutated, then we start calling it as carriers. If a disease has to be expressed, then what should happen? A mutation should be seen on both the genes present on both the X chromosome. Only then a disease would be seen. That we start calling it as allosomal recessive disorder. But in case of males, if we see, since there is only one X chromosome, males cannot be carriers. Why males cannot be carriers? Because there is only one X chromosome. Since there is only one X chromosome, one mutation on the gene present of X chromosome would be enough for this allosomal recessive condition. Getting it? Right? So that's the reason why males cannot be carriers for X-linked recessive disorder, whereas only females can be a carrier for X-linked recessive disorder. One more very important thing what you need to remember is with regards to X-linked recessive condition. In X-linked recessive disorders, males are more affected compared to that of females. Right? Males are more affected compared to that of females. This point also make a clear note of it. We'll be studying about this in our later classes. Once we get into the recessive disorder, once we get into the genetic disorders, there again you'll get a clear picture of this. Right. For now, we are talking about carriers. Carriers for autosomal recessive disorder is indicated this way. So carriers for allosomal recessive disorder, right? Carriers for X-linked recessive disorder is usually represented like this: a circle and a dot inside. Right? So a circle and a dot inside would represent allosomal recessive disorder. Right? So a circle with a dot inside would represent carriers for X-linked recessive disorder. Carrier for X-linked recessive disorder. But again, remember, as I've already said, it is seen only in case of females, whereas males cannot be the carriers. I also told you why males cannot be the carriers, because in case of males, there is only one X chromosome. In case of females, since there are two X chromosomes, one mutation in one of the X chromosome, it would lead to a carrier. But that's not the case in case of males because of presence of only one X chromosome, right? So technically speaking, this is how we actually represent carriers for both autosomal recessive and allosomal recessive disorder. But in most of the cases, right, even carriers for X-linked recessive disorder also is shown like this, right? But technically speaking, we usually use this symbol for carrier for X-linked recessive, and we usually use this symbol for carriers for autosomal. But most of the cases, even for carriers for X-linked recessive disorder also, we use the same symbol here. Right? So this is what we have as carriers. So whenever we talk about carriers, just imagine that it is a heterozygous condition. Right? So the individuals with heterozygous condition, we would start calling them as carriers for a particular disease. Right? So this is what we have. Right? Now, moving on to the next symbol. So we have a male, female here, and then there is a male here. Right. Now, if this female and male are connected by a horizontal line, right? So if a female and a male, if both of them are connected by a horizontal line, such type of pedigree symbol, we start calling it as mating. It is referred to as mating or crossing or reproduction. Right? So we use this symbol to indicate that they have both mated or crossing has occurred between these two individuals. In simple terms, we can consider it as a marriage. Marriage between two individuals, a female and a male, would be represented by a horizontal line joining a female individual and a male individual. So whenever you see this symbol here, that would indicate that the male and female are said to be married. Right? So this is what we have. Next, in certain cases, you'll find one more symbol here. So there is a female here and a male here. Right? Now this female and male are connected together by two lines. Right? Two parallel lines. So they are connected together by two lines. So if they are connected together by two lines, we start calling them as, or we start calling that symbol as consanguineous mating. Consanguineous mating. So what does this consanguineous mating mean? Consanguineous mating is nothing but mating between close relatives, right? Or marriage between close relatives, right? So mating or marriage between close relatives is indicated by two lines joining the male as well as the female. So if there are two lines joining a female and an individual, a male individual together, right, we start calling it as consanguineous mating, or we refer to it as mating between two different individuals, or a marriage between closely related individuals, right? Consanguineous mating is marriage between close relatives. So if we have to represent normal mating or normal marriage, a female and a male connected by one single line, mating or crossing or reproduction or marriage between two individuals. If there are two lines joining a female and a male, then we start calling it as consanguineous mating, that is mating between two close relatives. We call it as consanguineous mating, right? So this is what we have. Next symbol. In some cases again, right, so you find a symbol here, right? So this line indicates mating between two individuals, right? And if we draw a line perpendicular to it like this, right, a horizontal line joined by a vertical line, so this would represent the next generation. So this would represent the next generation, right? So next generation is represented by a vertical line joined, sorry, a horizontal line joined by a vertical line. So if there is a horizontal line which is joined by a vertical line, such type of symbol, we call it as the next generation, the symbol that we use for the next generation. So mating between the two individuals, a horizontal line joining the female as well as male. And if there is a line, a vertical line joining or connecting this horizontal line, then it would be the next generation, right? So this is what we have, right? So we usually term it as the next generation, right? Now, when we use the, okay, so we'll go there, right? We'll finish off with this. So these are some of the symbols, most commonly used symbols what we have. So let's take up a few more symbols, right? Let's take up a few more symbols. So we have a female here, right? So there is a female here and there is a male here, and I said connection, a horizontal line connecting the male and female, that indicates marriage, right? If we draw a line down, that indicates the next generation. So if we have to show their progeny, how do we show it? Let's suppose this particular individual has 3 children, right? So the first 2 individuals are daughters, first 2 children are daughters, the last one is a son, right? So this is how we show it, right? So this indicates the progeny or the offspring, right? So this is the next generation. This would indicate the progeny or the offspring, right? So what exactly is here? These 2 individuals are married, right? That is what we have shown here, right? So once marriage is done, they start producing 3 children, of which the first 2 are daughters, third is the son, right? So this is the first child, this is the second child, and this is the third child. Always remember, this would be the order of the children, right? So the first child will always be towards the left side, and the last one will be always towards the right side. So if there is more children added in that to that particular parents, we start increasing like this and going more and more towards the right side. But always remember, the first one is towards the complete left extreme, right? So this is the first child, second one, and the third one. So this order is actually fixed, right? Because why I'm stressing on this is because in the questions what you get, they will not say which is the first child, which is the second child, which is the third child. They will directly give you that to a couple, they got married and they have 3 children, and the third child is married to another woman, right? Third son is married to another woman. So you need to be clear which is the first one, which is the second child, and which is the third child. So always remember, the first child is always towards the left side, right? And the last child is always towards the extreme right, right? So this is what we have with progeny part. This is how we start denoting the progeny, right? So female, normal female, circle, empty circle, right? Normal male, empty square. And the third one, what we saw was a diamond shaped structure, a symbol if it is present that represents unspecified sex, right? Then we moved on into if the circle is completely solid, right? If the circle is solid, that would denote the affected female. If the square is completely solid, that would denote affected male, right? And if it is half solid, that would indicate that these individuals are heterozygote male and heterozygote female, right? So we usually use the term called as carriers with regards to heterozygous nature, right? So these are termed as carriers, right? Then if they both female and male are connected by a horizontal line, then we start using the term as mating, cross, or reproduction. If both male and female are joined together by two horizontal lines, just like this case, we start calling it as consanguineous mating. So when we say consanguineous mating, that would indicate that it is mating between two close relatives, right? If a horizontal line is connected by a vertical line, so that would indicate the next generation. And here, if we have to show the next progeny, right? So a vertical line, from the vertical line, we start showing the different types of progeny that are being present, right? So these are some of the basic symbols what we use, and some of the most commonly used symbols whenever we start doing a pedigree chart, right? So now we'll get into a few more things, right? Few more symbols which we usually come across, right? So how do we represent twins in case of a pedigree chart? So in case of pedigree charts or in pedigree analysis, how do we represent twins, right? So here, let us take up here. So there is a female and a male who are actually connected here. So they both have got married, right? Right. So after, once they are married, so they would give rise to twins. So when we say twins, how do we represent twins? From this horizontal line, if there are two lines coming out like this from the same point, right? So from this horizontal line which connects the male and female, if there are two lines coming up from the same point, right? So say one individual is female and the other individual is a male. So this is one condition. One of the child is a female, the other child is a male, right? So when is one child female and one child is a male, right? So when do we get twins with one male and one female, one son and one daughter? Only when the twins are said to be dizygotic. We start calling them as non-identical twins. So what are dizygotic twins or non-identical twins? There are two zygotes which are formed, or rather from the beginning if we go, there are two eggs which are released, two ovums which are released. Two ovums will start undergoing fertilization separately, as a result of which two zygotes are formed. Now these two zygotes will start undergoing the process of development, formation of embryo, fetus, and two children are being formed. So it could be either a son or a daughter. This is one possibility here. The second possibility is again a male and female, right, connected together, and they have both daughters. This is also one possibility, right? So the third possibility is a male and female again connected together, married together, and they also have twins. And the third possibility would be both would be sons. So these are the three different possibilities present. So if this is the condition, we start indicating it as dizygotic twins. So this is how we indicate dizygotic twins, or we call them as non-identical twins, right? So if it is non-identical twins or dizygotic twins, right? Non-zygotic twins or non-identical twins, this is how we usually demonstrate it. Now, if we have to show about identical twins or monozygotic twins, how do we show about monozygotic twins, or how do we show about monozygotic twins or identical twins? Again, so there is a female here and a male here, right? So both again same thing, we call it as twins. In monozygotic twins, what happens? What happens in monozygotic twins? Only one ovum is released, right? Only one ovum is released. Only once fertilization has taken place, only one zygote is formed. Now, during the developmental process, the zygote splits into two, leading to the formation of two separate zygotes or two independent zygotes. And those two zygotes will now start undergoing the process of development. So only one zygote is formed, and that zygote splits to form the twins. So such type of twins, we start calling them as monozygotic twins, which are called as identical twins. In case of identical twins, the sexes are already determined. So whatever twins are being formed, the twins will be of the same sex. So here, two possibilities are seen. Both would be girls. This is one possibility. The second possibility is both would be boys. Now, if you just see this condition and this condition are exactly similar. Now, how do we identify which is monozygotic twins and which is dizygotic twins? If it is dizygotic twins, this is how we show. And whenever we have to represent a monozygotic twins, we start joining the two twins together, right? So if we join the two twins together, so that is the indication that these individual or these twins are said to be monozygotic twins, or we call them as identical twins, right? In case of dizygotic twins, we do not join the two twins, whereas only in case of monozygotic twins, we start joining the two twins. So whenever you find that the two individuals or the two offsprings are joined together, automatically you have to come to a conclusion that these individuals are monozygotic twins, or they are said to be identical twins, right? So one more last symbol what we usually use is, sometimes you'll find a circle or you find a square, right? Either a circle or a square, and you find them crossed like this, right? Either a female or a male. If it is crossed, that indicates that these individuals are deceased, right? These individuals are deceased. So when we say deceased, so this would indicate that they are dead. So this would represent the death of the individual, right? Deceased or the death of the individual. So when an individual dies, this is how we start representing them, right? So this is what we have, right? So this is what we have with regards to the symbols which are usually used during the process of plotting a pedigree analysis, right? So I hope all are clear with the symbols what we have seen. A quick recap of symbols what we have seen so far. First one, if there is a circle, empty circle, that would indicate that the individual is a normal female, right? If there is an empty square, that would indicate that the individual is a normal male, right? Next, what did we see? A diamond shaped symbol. The diamond shaped symbol, if it is there, that would indicate that the sex of the individual is unspecified. We start calling it as unspecified sex. The fourth one, what we saw was, if there is a female and the female is completely shaded, right? We call it as a solid circle. If a solid circle is shown, that would indicate that the individual is an affected female. If there is a square which is being completely shaded, that would again indicate that the individual is an affected male, right? In some cases, what you have is either a circle or a square will be half shaded, half solid, half would be hollow, half would be solid. So if that is the condition, we would start representing it as a heterozygous condition. More precisely speaking, we would call them as carriers for a particular disease or carriers for a particular character. So remember, whenever we use the term carrier, we are indicating that it is a heterozygous condition, right? Then after that, what did we see? We took up with something called as mating. So how do we indicate mating? A male, a female, and a male, if they are joined together by one single horizontal line. If the female and male are joined by one single horizontal line, that would indicate normal mating or crossing or reproduction, or simply we can use the term marriage, right? Second thing what we saw, a female, normal female and normal male, if they both are connected together by two horizontal lines, if they both are connected together by two horizontal lines, then we would start calling it as consanguineous mating. That is mating or marriage between two close relatives, right? Mating or marriage between two close relatives is called as consanguineous mating. And that consanguineous mating would be shown by a female and a male joined together by two horizontal lines, right? Then we saw about when we do a horizontal line and if there is a vertical line shown, right? So this would indicate the next generation. This would indicate the next generation, just like what we have shown here. So this T-like structure would indicate the next generation, right? And the individuals below that next generation would start indicating the progeny. And as I've said already, remember that whenever we are talking about the order of the offspring, order of the progeny, we always start from the left, right? So the extreme left would always be the first child, and the extreme right would always be the last child. So remember this, right? Then we move on into how do we identify twins or how do we denote twins, right? So this is how twins are actually being represented. These we start calling them as dizygotic twins. That is, two different zygotes are formed, right? Since two different zygotes are formed, they start individually developing into two different individuals. So these are the three possible combinations for dizygotic twins. Then we have monozygotic twins. How do we differentiate a dizygotic twins with a monozygotic twins? We start joining the two twins together. So if you see a symbol where both the twins are joined, that would indicate that these individuals are said to be monozygotic twins. And finally, last one, if there is a circle and a square which is actually crossed, that would indicate a deceased person, right? Or that would demonstrate or indicate death of a particular person, right? So these are the most commonly used symbols what we have whenever we have to represent a pedigree chart, right? So what we'll do now is let us take up a simple example and see how do we plot a pedigree chart, right? So let us learn how to plot a pedigree chart using a simple condition, right? Let us take up a simple question and we'll see how a pedigree chart can be plotted. So for this, let us take up the example of skin color inheritance, right? So let's take the example of a skin colored inheritance, right? So you can just take down the question with regards to skin color inheritance, right? So the first question, what we'll be taking up is an intermediate skin colored man, an intermediate skin colored man, right? An intermediate skin colored man marries an albino woman. Marries an albino woman. Right. Next, they have three children. They have three children. Three children. First two are said to be daughters. First two are daughters. And third is the son. And third is the son. Right. Now, the first daughter marries an intermediate skin colored man. Intermediate skin colored man. Intermediate skin colored man. So they again have two children. They have two children, a son and a daughter. A son and a daughter. So they have two children, a son and a daughter, right? Now the son is albino. Son is albino. Now the question is, give the genotypes. Give the genotypes of all. Right? So this is the question what we have. Right? So what is the question stating here? There is an intermediate skin colored man, right? Intermediate skin colored man marries an albino woman, right? So if you could recollect what we saw with regards to the skin color inheritance in case of humans, we said that it is a polygenic inheritance, right? So when we were talking about polygenic inheritance, we took up the example of skin color in case of humans, right? We called it as polygenic inheritance there, and we said that there are three genes actually responsible for the skin color in case of humans, right? So here we are telling that intermediate skin colored man. So if you could recollect what we saw with regards to polygenic inheritance, we said that there are three genes. First one is AA, BB, and CC. If all six are dominant, the skin color is said to be black, right? Then, if all are heterozygous, we said that the individual is intermediate, right? When all are recessive, we said that the individual is albino. This is what we have with regards to inheritance of skin color in case of humans, right? So what is the question saying here? Intermediate skin colored man is crossed with an albino woman. So this man is crossed with this particular woman. So whenever we have to show it in pedigree, we don't use all the genes. We rather use only one particular gene, so that it would be easy for us whenever we do a pedigree chart, right? So we do not use three genes, we use only one. Now let us start plotting the pedigree, keeping the information what we have, right? First thing what we are saying, intermediate skin colored man. So we are talking about a man here, right? Marries an albino woman, right? So when what are the right what we are actually studying? We are actually studying how this albino is being inherited from one generation to the other generation. So the affected individual here would be the woman. So we start shading it. So this is the affected individual. Now, since we know the genotype of the affected individual, albino, it would be small a, small a. Since it is intermediate man, so the genotype of this man would be small a and capital A. So this is the first statement what we have. An intermediate skin colored man marries a albino woman. So how do we represent marriage? With a straight line here. Right. Next, they have three children. So we are putting a line here, showing the progeny, right? So they have three children, right? 1, 2, and 3. So who is the first one? First two are daughters, right? So the first two are daughters, third is the son. So as I've already said, the first one will be towards the extreme left. So first daughter, second one is the daughter, and the third one is a son. This is how we represent it. Now, their genotypes are not known. They have not said anything about the genotypes of these children in the first generation. So let us continue now. The first daughter marries an intermediate skin colored man. So this first daughter would marry an intermediate skin colored man, right? So the first daughter is marrying an intermediate skin colored man. Now, since this is intermediate skin color, we know that it is capital A and small a. Right. So once they are married, they again have two children, right? So they have two children here. Two children. First is a son and a daughter. So the first one is son here, and second one is daughter, right? And what they have tell at the last, the son is albino. So this son is albino. So that is small a and small a. This is how we start representing a pedigree chart. So the pedigree chart of this question here, what we have, a simple example here, is actually shown here. Now, what they have given in the question, give the genotypes of all. Now we need to identify what is the genotype of all the individuals. In your exams, right? So especially in your for your NEET exam, all that, they'll not tell you to identify the genotypes of all. They'll tell you to identify the genotypes of any one of the individuals. Right? So if that is the case, how do we show that? How do we show the genotypes now? Let us first talk about F1 generation here. So this would be F1, this would be F2 here. Now, female is homozygous recessive. Since female is homozygous recessive, definitely the female will be giving one recessive allele to all of the individuals here, right? Female will be giving a recessive individual to all of the children here, right? Now, what will the father be giving here, right? What will the father give here? If father gives recessive allele to this male will be affected. This male will be albino, but this male is normal. Since the male is normal, he gets capital A from the father. Similarly, this also. If small a recessive allele comes from the father to this child here, this daughter will be affected. But actually speaking, this daughter is actually getting capital A from the father. Same with this also, capital A from the father. So the genotypes of all of them, it is said to be heterozygote. We usually call them as carriers. Next, moving to the last generation. Father is intermediate, mother is also intermediate. This we are very much familiar now. Now, what would be the genotype of the individual here in the second generation, right? If this individual gets small a from the mother, definitely this individual should get capital A from the father. Or there is one more possibility. She can get capital A from the father or capital A from the mother. So this is the genotype of this particular individual in the F2 generation. Now here we know that it is small a because the son is said to be albino. So it is small a and small a. So this is how we start plotting the pedigree for a particular question. And this is how we actually start identifying the genotypes of all of these individuals. Right? So in the next session, we'll take up with some more examples. So we'll take up one more example and we'll see how to plot a pedigree. And if a pedigree chart is given, how to identify whether it is autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, or whether it is X-linked dominant or X-linked recessive disorder. So that will start taking up in the next sessions. Fine.